Hi, and welcome. My name is Tolan, and I'm the co-founder of Productivity Me. In this video, we're going to look at two things. First, we'll look at the different types of data that you can input into Microsoft Excel, and then we'll look at the different ways that you can enter this data into Microsoft Excel. So if you're interested either in the different types of data, whether that be text, numbers, or formulas, or you're interested in the different methods to input data, things like using the formula bar, things like using the enter key or the tab key, go ahead and join us for that. Now, if you want to follow along, go ahead and download exercise file 03.01 and you'll have the same screen, the same information that I have on mine, and you can follow along. All right, so the first thing that we want to cover is the different types of data, right? Or the different types of inputs that you can have. The first is what we'll call text. And if you write text or if you write some form of words into Microsoft Excel, then when you press enter or you enter that information into Excel, you'll notice that the text is the text is by default left aligned, meaning that it's going to be flush with the left part of the cell. Now, if we were to widen or narrow the width of the column, the text will always be left aligned until we change it. Now, if you were to put a number like the number 10, I'm going to enter this by pressing the enter key on my keyboard. You'll notice that numbers by default are going to be right aligned. So we have text, which is always going to be left aligned to the cell, numbers, which will always be right aligned here, like the number 10, and formulas are essentially just a type of calculation that ends up in a number. So the way that you would indicate a formula to Excel is by using an equal sign. So let's say 10, and then we'll say plus 10 is equal to 20. So formulas, as we learned, will be shown in the formula bar, and then the results here will be shown in the cell, and those individual items will be presented on the right. So those are essentially right justified. Now, so we know that text will be left justified, and we know that numbers like the number 10 will be right justified. But what about dates? So in Microsoft Excel, if you were to put in a date, say 10/10/2010, Microsoft Excel will automatically convert it to a specific date format. In this case, it would be month, day, year. And by year, we mean 4-digit year. And that too is going to be right justified. So that too is going to be flush with the right part of your cell. Because what Microsoft Excel does is when you have a number, as we'll discuss later in the course, you can apply a certain form of formatting. So things like you could give it a number formatting, which means it has decimal places, or a currency formatting, which means it looks like dollar signs, or rather like US dollars. But you can also give it something like a date formatting or a time formatting. The different types of formats don't change the fact that this input here is a number. So numbers are generally right justified and text is left justified. What about a mixed number? Like maybe you have an employee code or an employee ID or something, and it would be like ID 234, right? Well, because Microsoft Excel senses that there is some combination of characters, meaning letters or numbers, that are not just numbers, it's going to automatically left justify it. So if we have the number 234, it would automatically be right justified. But as soon as we come into the cell and we say, put in a letter like letter Z, it becomes right justified. This is called a mixed reference or a mixed text or mixed number. And Excel will generally left justify that. So as we move throughout the course, you kind of tend to get a sense that, well, whenever you enter text, it's going to be by default left justified. Numbers will be default right justified. And the different numbers that have formatting will also be right justified. And then mixed numbers and text will generally be left justified. Okay, so we've looked at that. But now what if you want to input information into Excel? So let's say that we want to take the number 10 and we want to input it into this cell of I2. Now there are a couple of different ways to do that. The first is you can click into the formula bar and you can enter the number 10. Now, once you've entered the number 10, what do? Well, there's a couple different ways to input that information and kind of make it permanent, so to speak. Now, the first would be to come over here to this little checkbox, and you would click this. If you click this, it will enter, and your active cell will remain highlighted. If you wanted to, you could also say click into the cell and then start typing. So if you want to say, again, we'll type the number 10. Then if you press and hold the control key as well as the enter key, that too would mean that your active cell is not going to move. However, if you wanted to input the number into a cell, rather than either come here and click in your formula bar and then press control enter, or you could double click in the formula bar and then click this little checkbox. You can also say, let's maybe change this to 11. Then you can take your cursor and you can click anywhere else in the Excel spreadsheet. And once you click somewhere else, like I am doing here, it will essentially input that number. So before it was 10, now it's 11. If we input the number 12 by just typing, it would override whatever that is. And if we want to make that change permanent, we would just take our cursor and click into another cell. Now, there are a couple other ways to input information into Excel. So you could say, let's make this 13. So we put 13. If we want to move downward, we could press the enter key. Pressing the enter key on your keyboard will both input this information into this cell, that active cell, which is now that of I5, and then it's going to move our active cell down to the cell below it, which is in our case I6. So look here in the name box, our current active cell is I5. We're going to press enter, and that number 13 is now input into I5, and our active cell is now I6. So if we want to move up, there's a keyboard combination that we can use, and that would be the keyboard combination of pressing the shift key and the enter key. So if you look here in the name box, our active cell is that of I6. So again, this is our active cell. We can tell that it's not permanent because the cursor is blinking here. And once we press the shift key and the enter key, that will move our active cell up. So if we were to say put 15 here and we want to move down, we press enter and it will move down. If we want to move up, let's say we put 16, we can press shift enter. So those are two ways to input information and then move your cursor down. What if you want to input information and move your cursor to the right? If you wanted to do that, let's say we put 17 here, then you can automatically tap the tab key. So pressing the tab key on your keyboard will input this number, that of 17, into the current cell, that of I7, and then it will move over to the next cell on our right. So that would be essentially right here, which is J7. So again, I'm going to press tab, and you'll now notice that our active cell is J7. Okay, well, what if we want to move left? If we want to move left, we could say press the number 18, and then rather than press tab, which would move us to the right, we would press shift tab. So we press shift tab and it would move us to the left. So again, if I wanted to say put the number 18 into the cell here, and I wanted to move to the cell on my left, I would press shift tab. Now this is a lot of information to cover, right? So this is something that I think people generally get more comfortable with over time, depending on your individual proficiency and familiarity with Excel. This might already make a lot of sense. But in this video, we covered the idea, well, you have different types of information, right? So if you have text, it will generally be left justified. If you had a number like 20, it would be right justified. If you had a formula like 20 plus 20, or in my case, 20 plus 320, that would be right justified. If we had some more text here, like words, that would be left justified. We could, again, put these numbers in, and like we'll discuss in a later video, change the formatting. So you could do it like that. Dates will generally be right justified, and then mixed text and numbers will be left justified. Now, if you wanted to, you can double click. Well, let's do it here. Let's clear all of this information by hitting the delete key. If you wanted to input information, maybe we'll make this 15. You could input that information and then hit the little checkbox. If you want, you can just start typing here. So we'll just start typing, and you can press the control key and the enter key. If you want, you could start typing, and then you could click into a different cell. If you wanted to move down, you could say press 18 and then the enter key. If you wanted to move up, you could say type what you want and then press the shift key and the enter key. Pressing the shift key and the enter key as a combination will move it up. Let's then bring our cursor here. If you wanted to move it right, you would press the tab key. And if you wanted to, say, click into this cell and put 21 and then move to your cell on the left, you would press Shift-Tab. So that is a general introduction to entering text into Microsoft Excel. Of course, there are different strategies that you can learn as you go along, but these are the basics. In our next video, we're going to look at how to edit existing information in a cell. So we'll look at different strategies to click into a cell, to make changes, to then modify those changes, even cancel the changes that we might have otherwise made. So join us for that in the next video, and we'll see you again soon. As always, thanks for watching.